I'm like, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you an arms dealer, or are you an arms seller? Are you brokering arms?
We just had the Shangri-La dialogue finish, and you've mentioned in the past that outside involvement, especially from the US, makes the South China Sea situation worse. We heard Hegseth speaking at the Shangri-La dialogue saying that the US is committed to the Indo-Pacific and that they want Asian allies to be spending more on defense. Now, my question to you is, what do you think about these statements when it comes to Asian security, ASEAN security, sorry? And do you think they're helpful or do they hurt peace in the region?
For me, to be frank with you, Fernando, and to our audience, I am not really, I'm not, it was not an encouraging statement coming from Hegseth, especially his comments with regard to Taiwan Strait issue and the question of Taiwan, and even on the South China Sea. First and foremost, on the issue of the South China Sea, I would reiterate that the United States is not a party to the dispute. So in any case, it really has no right to interfere or even intervene in the dispute, because it is not party to the dispute. Now, it is not even a signatory to UNCLOS or the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. However, it uses the provision of UNCLOS in justifying its presence in the
Excuse me.
South China Sea. That's the problem with them. And they always use this so-called freedom of navigation, and they would want to safeguard freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. When in fact, if you really look at the area since the beginning and since time immemorial, there were never an issue on the freedom of navigation. All the ships, especially commercial ships, are freely able to pass through that area, precisely because that area is a very important trade routes when you talk about commercial and trade. And even China really put high regard, or it's like a priority for China in that area,
Yeah.
because most of its trade would pass through that South China Sea route. So in any case, it's like hypocritical for the United States to say that we are putting much of our military firepower and even military presence, naval forces in the South China Sea to preserve what you call freedom of navigation, when in fact there's no problem with freedom of navigation. I see, the statement of Hegseth is more like, it was really funny for Hegseth to say these things, especially when he said, like, I'm encouraging Asian countries and even ASEAN countries as well, but it refers to the regional countries in Asia Pacific, to increase what you call their spending on military and
Hmm.
defense by 5% of their GDP. I'm like, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you an arms dealer, or are you an arms seller? Are you brokering arms? Is it precisely because the United States wants to sell arms more to Asia Pacific countries for your own benefit? But take note, in Asia Pacific, no, Asia Pacific countries, usually when you talk about military and defense spending, it's even within only 2% or less than 2%, because most of its revenue or most of the GDP are being geared toward economic prosperity and development. Usually, in most cases, Asian countries would prioritize social welfare, infrastructure development, climate change mitigation, disaster relief and disaster rescue, and mitigation, and even poverty alleviation, and investment in economics for development. So these are the priorities of countries in ASEAN, or in the Asia Pacific. So, I mean, it's really like funny for him to say, like, please increase your military spending. It's precisely because maybe he's selling arms to all Asian countries. So I don't understand. And I don't even think that Asian countries will buy this kind of rhetoric, or kind of statement, because I don't think we will waste money for defense. In the very first place, what is it for? Is there something like a military conflict that will happen eventually in the Asia Pacific region? That's why he's encouraging countries to have 5% spending of their GDP on military. But I don't think Asian
Mhm.
countries wants to talk about military. I think most of the Asian countries wants to talk about economic development and economic prosperity. That's why, as you can see, China is getting leverage and more and increasing influence in Southeast Asia, and even beyond Southeast Asia or beyond the ASEAN region, precisely because China offers economic opportunities to many countries. It invests it invests in every sector of a country's economic development. Like for example, China through the Belt and Road Initiative, soft and hard infrastructure, AI, digital infrastructure, so many things, business opportunity, many kind of opportunities and investment that is within the context of economic development and economic opportunity. So that's why China is, when you talk about its influence in the region, it's growing and it becomes apparent because that's within the priority of the regional countries. So for
Mm.
me, it's like funny for Hegseth to appear like an arms dealer rather than a representative of the United States in the 2025 Shangri-La Forum or dialogue in Singapore. So I was like shocked when I heard him, when I was listening to him, because I actually listened to him during the time that he was delivering his speech last May 31 in that was
Mm.
Saturday, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in Singapore. So I was like shocked. Oh my God, what he's doing? Is he selling arms? So that's my reaction. And also
That's
one thing,
that's a very
and
good representation.
yeah, yeah, Fernando.
An
And
arms
another
dealer.
thing is, yeah, another thing is like this: the presence of, the presence of that kind of statement of Hegseth is more about it's really more about assertion of that it wants to preserve its hegemonic presence in the region.
Mm.
And another thing, though, the military presence of the United States in the region, especially in the Taiwan Strait area and even in the South China, it's not a peaceful thing. It destabilizes the whole security architecture of Asian countries or the Asian region. And at the same time, it's not really promoting peace. It's provoking arms race. It provokes China always, precisely because you're talking about South China Sea, which China has a stake, and how much more Taiwan in that sense. So it's not really a stabilizing force. Rather, it's destabilizing the whole region and provoking some kind of tension and anxiousness among regional countries in Asia Pacific. So I really don't think countries in the region are happy with such a statement coming from Hegseth in the Shangri-La dialogue. Really, I don't think so.